Coming up, the religious freedom case that's rocked South Korea. Meet the pastor who spent months in prison for preaching biblical values. Welcome back. Turning to a religious freedom case we've been following in South Korea. Authorities arrested Pastor Hyunbo-son last September and held him for 5 months. CBN Asia correspondent Louise Toulousan recently visited the pastor at his church to talk about his experience.
It's the third Sunday since the release of Pastor Hyunbo-son after nearly 5 months behind bars. Now, back to his regular routine, he greets newcomers and prays for members before service begins. The service begins with vibrant worship. And what happens next, you don't see in many churches. A question and answer session with the pastor. Son asked the kids about the previous Sunday's topic, separation of church and state. One boy answered, separation of church and state means the state shouldn't come into the church. Then a teenager explained,
if it hadn't been established, the government could interfere with the church, and we wouldn't be free to worship God according to our conscience.
Pastor Son says this was the generation on his mind when he took a stand that led to his arrest. It led to a conviction of violating election law for interviewing a school superintendent candidate who supported biblical principles, instead of the government-backed candidate who promoted LGBTQ policies in the school curriculum.
When the left-wing government came into power, freedom of religion is being suppressed. There is an amendment to the Civil Code that has been proposed in January that states if there are religious speech or beliefs related to politics, the government will be granted the power to disband or dissolve the church and revoke the permit of the church. Investigations and inspections can be conducted without warrant, and assets and properties of the church can be transferred to the government.
This can be considered as religious persecution. I believe the church is a place of conscience and of our faith, and so there is no reason for the government to interfere with what the church can say and not, and so these rights have to be protected.
During this assembly, Pastor Son encouraged church leaders to not fear going to jail for standing up for God's kingdom, adding he's ready to give whatever it takes, even going back to prison.
The people here are chanting that this is about protecting, living out, and speaking biblical truth without fear of being punished by the government.
Pastor Son also shared how God sustained him as he evangelized to 85 inmates and even managed to write a book in just 3 days.
Because I was able to evangelize all the cells every Sunday, it didn't look like a prison, but it looked like a sanctuary because all the other cells were worshiping God. I just got a letter from an inmate. The letter said, it feels really empty and he is disappointed that Pastor Son is not in the prison.
Miracles happened outside the prison as well, like his sons being invited to Washington just days before the pastor's sentencing.
I was invited to White House, and I got opportunity to brief several teams at White House and State Department about my father's case and situation, why my father has been targeted. 2 days after, the Prime Minister of South Korea met with Vice President Vance. It's actually the first time in 41 years a Prime Minister of South Korea visiting the U.S. The Vice President Vance told the Prime Minister Kim to carefully handle my father's case and also to ensure there's no misunderstanding in the case.
That resulted in 2 representatives from the U.S. consulate in South Korea showing up at the hearing, which may have added some pressure on the judge's decision. When asked why he did not look at his family during the hearings,
Of course, I miss my family, especially my grandchildren. But if I look back and saw my grandchildren and my family, they would have weakened my heart. The point right now is to sacrifice and fight. The Republic of Korea is a free nation, thanks to the sacrifices of our forefathers and the Americans who fought in the Korean War and the missionaries. But with a new left-leaning government, there are concerns that our children may be influenced by ideologies that contradict with the biblical values and that can spread around the world. And so I pray that the Christians in Korea, the United States, and around the world will stand together and fight for freedom and continue shedding light on these issues through outlets like CBN. So thank you for helping share this message. This is what we are fighting for.
Lucille Talusan, CBN News, Busan, South Korea.